ministerial keynote address by Provincial Minister of Finance of the Western Cape.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me quite clearly? Fantastic. I saw Honourable Minister Patricia de Lille in the foyer earlier, Minister Katila Mkombo, Deputy Mayor Eddie Andrews, Mr. Puli, and the organization of SiGMA, leaders and innovators in the gaming and gambling space, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the welcome, and thank you to the SiGMA Group for the invitation to join you at this year's Africa Summit here in our mother city of Cape Town and in the Western Cape. It is a pleasure to see such a broad gathering of operators, regulators, investors, policymakers, and technology specialists under one roof. Events of this size do not happen without reason. They happen when an industry is expanding, when a city has the infrastructure and the capability to host global decision makers, and when the economic opportunities are ripe with opportunity. The organizers noted that there are more than 3,000 delegates expected at this year's summit today, and I want to congratulate you for that, with representation across the continent and far beyond even the borders of Africa. It speaks to the weight of the conversations that are being held here. South Africa's gambling sector has grown rapidly and quickly. The country recorded a gambling turnover of 1.5 trillion rand in 2024-25 financial year, with online activity driving a large share of that growth. Digital betting, esports, fintech payment systems, and compliance-focused technologies have reshaped the environment at a rapid pace. A sector that once relied on physical venues now operates across digital platforms that scale instantly all over the world. That shift requires a regulatory posture that is fair but responsive and able to keep pace with new technologies while protecting the public. I know that the speakers earlier on were asking the question about what is more important. Are we asking about the revenue in the industry? We're asking about the protection of the players. But something in the law that we have forgotten as treasuries and as economic opportunity regulators across South Africa, something that is required of us is also the protection of the fiscus. And protection of the fiscus is also about that harm that is created in society. The expansion of the gambling industry has ripple effects that extends well beyond the operators themselves. It supports a large network of service providers, from fintech firms and software engineers to compliance specialists, call center staff, and hospitality workers. This creates opportunities across multiple sectors of the economy, particularly in a province like the Western Cape, where tourism, entertainment, and technology intersect naturally. The strength of this value chain is one of the reasons that the Western Cape has become a preferred location for business operating in this space. The Western Cape is central to the story of the ever-expanding gaming and gambling landscape in our country, and the province has become one of the main drivers of South Africa's gross gambling revenue. Growth has been so strong that the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board recorded collections of approximately 1.7 billion rand in gambling taxes in 2025. Please do yourself a hand of applause, because I actually want to tell you where your gambling taxes go. 10 years ago, that figure was 51 million rand. The increase reflects a rise in license holders and annual sector growth of more than 16%. It is no longer a peripheral industry in our provincial economy. It is a major contributor to the Western Cape's fiscal stability. So for those who don't know, we take the gambling taxes and we put it straight back into the Western Cape government budget. So for those who might know, on the 12th of March, I'm tabling the provincial budget, and you will see how the gambling taxes are put back into our provincial budgets and how it is essentially assisting us in funding infrastructure across our province. These taxes are not collected for their own sake. As the industry grows, the social impact on individuals and families require equal attention. Responsible gambling practices, early warning interventions, and stronger public awareness are essential if the sector is to remain sustainable. And I actually want to tell you about a program that our departments of health, education, and social development is currently running. They have a program where they actually survey youth in schools. And they have surveyed over 50,000 youth in schools in the Western Cape. And for the first time ever, the problem of online gambling is coming out as a response from children themselves of what they are doing. And the question was also asked earlier on stage, what can we do in terms of responsible gambling? When the children were asked about their behavior, the strongest factor as to whether a child would drink or gamble would be whether their parent was okay with it. So it was a main drive about whether a child would do something or not. Does my mom know? Is my mom okay with it? Does my mom allow me to do it? So we also have to have a question about the role of parents within making sure that we are promoting responsible gambling in our country. We need to reinvest our gambling revenue back into our communities, and the Western Cape government has been deliberate in utilizing these funds to support services that matter to residents, such as education, health, social development, and safety. The Western Cape has also used these tax revenues to strengthen its provincial reserves so that we can safeguard essential services against unforeseen shocks, climate disasters, budget cuts, and wider fiscal pressures. As you may know, disasters in our country and in our province is increasing at a rate that we simply can't keep pace with. Currently, we are dealing with disasters in drought, in water, in fire, in gender-based violence, as well as foot and mouth disease in our province. We recognize that growth must go hand in hand with stronger safeguards, and the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board has been proactive in the implementation of community outreach initiatives, early intervention programs at schools, and working with license holders to ensure that the COI is effective and transformational. But if you are a payment operator in the room, I want to ask you, what are the safeguards that you're putting on your systems when it comes to children? And it can be something as simple as, because you don't always know what a child might tick on their cell phone. It's so easy these days to get around some of the questions that we ask online to people. So would it make a difference if the pop-up for a child would ask, does mom know, before the payment is made? Would there be a difference if we had to engage the mobile operators to say, how do we buy SIM cards and the regulation of SIM cards? Can a mom or dad say that this cell phone and SIM card is going to be for my child, and therefore I want you to put certain blocks on it? What are those conversations that we could have? These type of interventions could help ensure that residents have access to skills and knowledge long before harm becomes entrenched. A sustainable industry requires a framework where commercial success does not overshadow the well-being of households. But growth on this scale also places new pressures on institutions responsible for oversight and regulation. The rapid expansion of online sports betting is one example. To ensure that regulation keeps pace with the market, the Western Cape government will allocate more than 25 million rand to strengthen our capacity at our board over the next 3 financial years. And I think this amount is actually increasing after the 12th of March, as I see some of the stakeholders in our government sitting at the back. The investment will support the board in collecting more than 3 billion rand in gambling taxes over the same period, as the gambling sector continues to grow into its new phase. Our regulatory institutions has also adapted to a more complex landscape, as the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board has been modernizing its systems by improving automation, strengthening internal ICT systems, and looking at artificial intelligence as a crucial tool to support its future functions. We need a modern board to keep up with the demands of a rapidly modernizing industry. These improvements will make possible to detect irregularities sooner, speed up licensing processes, and ensure fair play across the value chain. As the digital market evolves, regulation must evolve with it, and the Western Cape intends to stay ahead of that curve. In fact, I actually gave our board a deadline. I know some operators in the room might still be part of the onboarding process, but I said we need to have a deadline for onboarding all of our stakeholders. And the reason for this is in order for us to bring efficiency into the system and also make it easier for people to complete their licensing requirements. So I will be holding the board accountable for such deadlines for onboarding. Ladies and gentlemen, the province is still well positioned to support the next phase. The Silicon Cape's digital ecosystem is strong, with an established base of fintech companies, software developments, and data specialists. These capabilities align closely with the direction of the modern gambling and gaming landscape, which relies increasingly on real-time analytics, cybersecurity systems, digital identity verification, and cross-border connectivity. Hosting SiGMA Africa here strengthens our competitiveness and reinforces regions in the province such as Cape Town and Stellenbosch as natural centers for investment regulation and innovation in this space. In fact, when you think about some of the skills that will be needed for this industry, when we talk about mathematics, we talk about the sciences, even our Department of Education has been committed in our province that for various different industries, for various different occupations, that we really must invest even more in our mathematics and science in our province. We are seeing growing interest from international investors who view South Africa and the Western Cape in particular as a gateway to the African digital market. The province offers governance stability, reliable service delivery, responsible fiscal management, and a talent base that continues to attract global companies. Partnerships between the Western Cape government, universities, and the private sector are expanding research and development capacity. These are building blocks that underpin long-term economic growth. So I welcome SiGMA's focus on collaboration between the industry and government. Your engagement with policymakers, gaming authorities, and regulators from across the world recognizes that the long-term health of this sector depends on transparent, constructive dialogue. South Africa and the Western Cape in particular have much to contribute. We have a regulatory framework that aims to balance development with accountability. We have a market that is mature enough to be stable and dynamic enough to keep expanding. And we have a provincial government that is committed to fair and responsible growth. And this is why, as the Western Cape government, we have commenced the process of completely reforming our provincial gambling legislation. So please keep an eye on this part. Looking ahead, our priorities remain clear. We will continue to strengthen our Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board so that it remains equipped to regulate a rapidly evolving industry. We need to make sure that the legislation is more fair, more responsible, and more innovative. I know that also in some of the international development that the community has been talking about, how do we really leverage the digitization? There's been conversation about cryptocurrency within this market as well. And while as governments we don't always have the answer, I encourage the participants of the SiGMA conference this year, if you have recommendations in the field of technology and digitization and even cryptocurrency, please engage us. Please let us know. Something I told my team, if the gambling industry is considering cryptocurrency, okay, where do I put it? Because provinces do not have crypto reserves. So where do I put that? What do I do with it once I have it? So those are all questions we need to ask ourselves if we are going to venture within cryptocurrency and even the gambling industry. We need to also work with other provinces and the national government to address mutual risks. And I recognize the executive director of the South African Responsible Gambling Institution that was here earlier, as well as some of our colleagues from the Limpopo regulator. And we will maintain open engagement with operators and technology providers to ensure that policy adapts in line with industry realities. We must also confront the risks that come with growth. Illegal gambling, payment fraud, and the misuse of digital platforms undermine both industry and public confidence. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated monitoring systems, partnerships with financial institutions, public education campaigns, and broader commitment from society. Growth cannot come at the expense of vulnerable households. But I know that people will probably want to know what is our position on the online gambling position paper by the National Treasury. So I will tell you, because as a Western Cape government, we've already met, we've sat, we were unanimous on this matter, and we've submitted our comments to National Treasury and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition officially last week, as per the required deadline. The Western Cape government, in principle, we want illegal gambling to be regulated. And it is important to say that the National Department of Trade, Industry and Competition does need to put that law forward. But what we oppose is that the taxation is at a national level, because gambling falls within our provincial mandates, and we believe it must remain at a provincial level. And the DTIC, we must say that we must give credit where credit is due, that they have been working with the provinces to ask ourselves, how do we harmonize and work with one another for the betterment of the people of South Africa? So we need to acknowledge that. We also need to acknowledge that there's no linear path between taxation and change of behavior. So we talk about changing of behavior of people as human beings. We need to then have that conversation is, what changes the behavior? Someone once told me a story about a person that's within a room with four doors. And they asked you, if you only want the person to go through one door, what do you do? So the politician will come and they will come and try and convince you that you must only go through the one door. A lawyer will regulate to say you can only go through this one door. But you know what an engineer will do is they will block up the other 3 doors so that you only go through the one door. So we need to be honest about what exactly are those key items that can assist with changed behavior. And there is no linear path between that particular taxation and changed behavior. The next part that that paper does not address is it does not deal with the illegality of online gambling. And what we do not want is for those who are doing wrong to impact on those who are doing right. So we need to have a conversation both about reform within legality, but also how do we make sure that we're not punishing those who are being compliant, who are being responsible, and who are taking cognizance about the harm within our society. And then finally, and I've said this to the National Finance Minister before, it's not a secret, you cannot use the Western Cape's good governance figures of our government and our board to justify that a tax must be at a national level. In and of itself, by using our figures and using our good governance as an argument, you have disproved your argument before we even have a discussion going forward. So these are the matters that I've raised with the national government, and I will continue to lobby from a province side that we continue to keep taxation at a provincial level. Not only does it affect our fiscus, but it affects our people, because our board are the ones who has to end up going out to do the work. So the money must follow the people where the work is done. I hope that your discussions over the coming days will support the development of a gaming and gambling environment that creates jobs, that attracts investment, and embraces technological progress while remaining firmly grounded in responsible governance. Africa's markets are young, it's ambitious, it's increasingly digital. Global projections show that the gambling sector expands steadily over the next several years, and I see that the MC is moving closer towards me, so I will speedily get to the end. I know my media officer also complains that I don't. I speak from the heart sometimes. The Western Cape, I do believe, is the right place to have these conversations. We need to know that we are a province that understands the importance of balancing innovation with the responsibility of safeguarding our people. And I want to congratulate the SiGMA team for assembling the program of this scale and hosting it in South Africa. As a government, we stand ready to work with the industry, with regulatory partners to advance a stable, well-regulated, and forward-looking gaming and digital technology sector. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today, and I trust that the conversations and partnerships here will strengthen the industry throughout our continent. I wish you all successful and productive summit. I thank you.